Greetings, my friend. Welcome to the secret shop.
Come on, just go. Yeah, we're just gonna go. It's happening.
Is it though?
It is. It is. Oh, the recording is happening at the very least. I'm coming in really hot. I'm gonna turn myself down. I think.
Coming in lukewarm.
How's it going, guys? How's it going, Anger?
It's not going that well.
She has gone into hibernation.
Yeah, I had my last Artifact stream yesterday, and
Oh, fuck.
it was really emotional.
Oh, fuck. I'm sorry I couldn't catch that.
The thing is, I could probably stream the game for another few weeks or months, and I would enjoy it. But when they relaunch the game, I don't want to be burnt out on the same fucking set of cards for like a year, playing the same thing over and over again, you know? I want to quit while I still have love for this game. So when I come back, I won't be, burnt out on it.
Yeah. If it even is the same game, but I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
No, I mean, we're just. This is going to be an interesting episode. This is for people who are listening. I've already decided that this is going to be a pretty rough cut episode because just want to get things out there in a genuine fashion. Like no intro, nothing like that. Other than you saying obviously, if you pay any attention to Artifact right now, you know kind of what happened here, and that was of course we got our announcement from Valve this past Friday, basically announcing that Artifact was in fact dead in terms of Artifact in its current iteration. So basically today we're going to be kind of just shitting the shit about what our thoughts are about this. I don't really even know where exactly it's going to go. But basically all I have in mind is I'm going to read through the statement and then from there we're just going to go with things and see what people have to say. Cause I'm sure that we all have a fuck ton to say about this.
Yeah.
So let's start. Yeah, let's read through it. Towards a better Artifact. When we launched Artifact, we expected it would be the beginning of a long journey, that it would lay the foundation for years to come. Our plan was to immediately dive into our normal strategy of shipping a series of updates driven by the dialogue community members were having with each other and with us. Obviously, things didn't turn out the way we hoped. Artifact represents the largest discrepancy between our expectations of how one of our games would be received and the actual outcome. But we don't think that players misunderstand our game, or that they're playing it wrong. Artifact now represents an opportunity for us to improve our craft and use that knowledge to build better games. Since launch, we've been looking carefully at how players interact with the game, as well as gathering feedback. It has become clear that there are deep-rooted issues with the game, that our original update strategy of releasing new features and cards would be insufficient to address them. Instead, we believe the correct course of action is to take larger steps to re-examine the decisions we've made along the way regarding game design, the economy, the social experience of playing, and more. What does this mean? Moving forward, we'll be heads down focusing on addressing larger issues instead of shipping updates. While we expect this process of experimentation and development to take a significant amount of time, we're excited to tackle this challenge, and we'll get back to you as soon as we are ready. So, to begin with, I think that it would be good to just kind of get candid, long takes. I just want to give, send the floor to each of us to give our reactions just uninterrupted for a few minutes to just get what your thoughts are. I'm going to start with Anger. So just tell me what you're thinking after you read this, and since what you read this.
Well, when I first read it, I thought I was gonna be sad about it, but actually, quite on the contrary, the past couple of weeks I've been actually hoping for no small updates because they didn't contribute anything to fixing what the game is actually struggling with, or or bring any players back, bring in new players. The small changes did none of that. Like I'm talking about like the item changes and all the other small patches, and even a new expansion would probably bring back some of the old players, but there would still really be not be a big incentive to play, especially not with the same ranked system. Maybe if they also rework the ranked system, but there would be so many small things they would have to rework with the second expansion for people to even consider coming back. But new players, I think you could pretty much forget. And then there's if they had also announced the tournament, the $1 million tournament, maybe also the big pro players and streamers would come back, who knows. But in the end, it would all just be for the money in the $1 million tournament. There's so many deep issues that I don't think like it would be a band-aid. It wouldn't be like uprooting a big weed, you know. And so I think this is actually the best thing they could do. Go back and look at why did so many people leave, rather than actually like I actually want them to not listen to the people who love the game, because the people who love the game are obviously in the minority. So I was actually happy when they announced it, because then I know that if they don't relaunch it, then it's fucked. And honestly, I think it's 50-50 whether or not they will relaunch it. I think there's a big chance they will abandon it, but at least with the 50% chance of a relaunch, there's still a chance that this game will prosper. And I'd rather take that 50% than they continue to update it and give out expansions and then it's never gonna flourish, you know?
Hmm. Well, when I read this for the first time, it was kind of an emotional roller coaster because I looked at my phone, I just saw towards a better artifact, and I was so hyped. I thought this was like the first step. I thought they were actually starting what I thought to be, the thing that they speak about in the first paragraphs, which is like a series of quality updates, maybe even the first expansion, etc. Because I knew that there wouldn't be any small updates anymore. I knew that the idea was to go silent and just release like the first of several big patches, the first of which would probably have the next expansion. I thought that was still the plan. I really did. And here's the thing, I am one of those people that that Anger just mentioned. I love the game, and I'm actually one of those weird people who still find the gameplay engaging. And oh man, when I read the line for the first time, where is it? 1 second. We don't think that anybody is playing it wrong, right? In my head, I was already like, I disagree. Because in my mind, again, like I'm a fanboy, I get that, and clearly Valve has the humility to admit that there are deep-rooted flaws in the game, apparently. Though I personally never saw them as such. I always thought that things such as the RNG or the lack of interaction with heroes and synergies, etc., that could all be added through time. But Valve's saying that's not enough. We can't do this like as an incremental change. Like we can't do this No Man's Sky thing. We can't just spend the next few years updating and updating until finally public opinion on our game flips again. We gotta just redo the whole thing. At least that's what it looks like to me. I thought, okay, are they just trying to readjust our expectation? Because we've already been waiting about 3 months almost since any official word from the guys. And in my mind, I thought, oh, in April, certainly in April, maybe in summer, you know. But now they are basically telling us a significant amount of time. That's like the key phrase here, isn't it? We already know what soon means when it comes to Valve. What the fuck is a significant amount of time? Like, that's not this year. Not in my mind, not when it comes to Valve. Like, this means, especially when they spoke about deep rooted issues with the game. Again, I, fanboy that I am, thought we could do the incremental changes, the slow improvements, add synergies, maybe give heroes more active abilities, maybe change the RNG a little bit, me. But apparently that's not enough, and they're gonna do an actual big relaunch. I don't know what that's gonna look like. Like, a year from now or something, is there gonna be a new trailer? Is there gonna be a big new media push? Is it still like? Can you even still call that artifact when you do the whole thing over again? You know what I mean? Isn't the name itself tarnished when you do this?
So,
like at this point, yeah, I'm looking for some feedback, because I'm at a loss for words in many ways in this aspect, because I like Artifact. I like it the way it is. I see tons of improvement. We talked about this. I see tons of space for improvement, but like taking a break for what looks to be months, if not a year, to come out with something they redesigned from the drawing board, that's
Well,
huge.
I agree with you because I also love the game, and I agree with you. I would like a second expansion straight away,
At
and
least give it a
just
chance. I don't know.
small updates to the game. But if you see it from Valve's perspective, like they're trying to make money off of this, and then the relaunch is the only possible solution, because the small updates will not bring people back. It will not bring in new players. People will barely even hear about it. Oh, Artifact got an update, and they won't even check what it is, because people are just bored with this game now. So
Hey,
so
but
I agree with you. For my own selfish fun, I think small updates over time would be best. But for the game as a whole, to get more than 200 fucking players, I think Valve is making the best decision. And
yeah,
possibly, even if I was with Valve, I might even abandon the game, to be honest.
I think that
here's the thing,
for
though.
me,
Yeah,
I would say is that what I imagine actually happened. Because the thing is, in some respects, this has been an interesting sort of rhythm as to how things have happened over the last couple of months. Because it's especially interesting to me that we have this like long period of no communication, and then we get this announcement. And
yeah,
the reason is why I think that that's interesting is actually what I believe happened there was that the team that's still there, so like the Reinhardt and Jeep and etc.,
yeah,
people who are still working on the game, um decided to say like, okay, like we understand the fact that Artifact has some problems, people are unhappy about it in important ways. Let's see if we can fix these things through minor changes and new cards. Like, let's see if a medium-sized update would solve a lot of what the issues are. And I think that what they did is that they tried that. They tried to make a second expansion and see if they really felt that it solved these problems. And I think that what happened is they decided that they couldn't do it. Like like as they were trying it and as they were working on it, because the thing is, like, this solution here, like what you read on the page here, like that's not the thing that you do first. What you do first is you bang your head against the wall, you make new cards, you try new heroes, you rebalance some things, and you do that again and again and again until until you can say like pretty certainly like we're not going to make a game that a lot of people like with these fundamental mechanics. So we need to take a real look at some of the fundamental balance of the game. And that's and like I'm not a card designer, but I know like an okay amount about card design and game balance and stuff, once you start messing around with some of the fundamental mechanics of the game, all of the cards have to be kind of rebalanced around that.
Yeah.
Like things like RNG in the just like the laning phase in terms of or an initiative. Like as soon as you do any like tweak to how initiative works or how the aggro pulling aggro works, you might realize like the value of all of these different cards goes wildly up and down now, and so we have to kind of recost everything, take some cards out, put new cards in their place, and just do like a really serious overhaul in the entire game. So part of what I'm like saying all this for is that there's part of me that's like frustrated that they didn't try with the second expansion and see if they could make it work. Like, I mean, in terms of like putting it out to the public and see what we think about it. Like, I'm kind of angry that they didn't try at least that. And if that didn't work, then move on to this more drastic solution. But I guess that they just knew after trial and error that they weren't going to get there. So I'm willing to trust them on that. The thing though that I think is kind of interesting and kind of keying off of Simon's question about is it still Artifact and whatever comes out afterwards, I think that there are ways in which you can take some of the mechanics of the game, rework them significantly. You keep some of the cards the same, some of the cards are different. Like I don't know a lot about Gwent, but they went through a similar life cycle in that it was like they had an initial launch. There were some people who were really enthusiastic about it. It had more success than Artifact of the initial launch. It took a while for it to peter up, and people were unhappy about the follow-ups, but they did the rework, and that now it's actually doing well again.
Yeah.
So that was something that I'm not like. I think that you can make a game that is Artifact again.
Vi håller på att laga en episod i podcast, Kara.
Oh, what's that?
She's talking to family, I believe.
Ett ögonblick.
Okay, sweet. So,
hello, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about
don't worry about it. I was all saying in this is but the thing for me was so you have that you can rework it and make it into still the same game in some important respects, but serious reworks in other respects, as one element of it. And then beyond that, like, I guess we're just going to see, but I think that the point is we're probably not going to see anything for at least 6 months is like, the soonest that we see anything before the fall, even like a subtle announcement at TI, I would be surprised. Well, at this point, we're probably going to be a really long time. So we'll have to kind of see how things go. But man, it sucks that this is kind of how we're hearing about it and that this is the way that things sort of have to go. I don't know. I still kind of feel like there might have been some solution there to rework it with just some additional card releases and slight reworks. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating to read this after putting all the time in.
I was also hoping that they would at least give it a try with new cards. Just do one more big update, see if it does anything, and then go back into your foxhole. But I also kind of understand, because with how the quote-unquote community was, dealing with Artifact currently, and how the whole discussion about Artifact and its design just became an incoherent circle jerk. I understand that releasing an expansion, people would have just analyzed, does it solve any of our circle jerk complaints about RNG and heroes or something? If not, still that game, right? And it would have been the same stuff. Something that I find interesting is, firstly, we know that the first expansion was mostly done by the time the game released. At least there was this one Garfield email where he's like, well, I'm back at Valve currently because we're finishing up the first expansion, blah, blah, blah. And then when Garfield on Three Donkeys was let go just a couple of weeks back, his email reply seemed to imply the exact opposite of what we're getting here. He was saying that time is critical right now, and they want to be fast and do less considered decisions. And now we're getting this. So I feel like Valve at first wanted to do what I just said. Guys, gotta crunch it, gotta get a big update out, gotta get the expansion out. And then they just kind of looked at it again, and just like, as you said, Neon, they kind of just fell apart in the way that they realized this isn't actually fixing any of the community's complaints. This is still not changing Artifact. This is just more tacked on. We gotta look at it.
I think that what you're calling out about Garfield's email sort of not making sense in current context is an important observation, because it's in like I mean, I understand like he doesn't owe us anything in the sense that, you know, he did his part in the game and walked away from it. It's kind of like, okay, well, you know, whatever, it sucks, but that's just kind of how things go sometimes. So like I don't think that email that he sent out was you know, verified by Valve's PR people, for example. So you know, who knows what happened there. But I think that generally what this reads as is that Valve decided is like, well, we don't really want your advice anymore on this.
Yeah.
Wonder why.
Yeah.
Did Garfield
No, I'm
ruin
sorry, but
your game?
I think a lot of the problems with the games is actually because of Garfield's old way of looking at card games.
Yeah, the manifesto.
Like instead, like, why would they bring in an old MTG legend like him? And I'm sorry, I'm gonna talk a little bit of shit, but like, when you want to make video games in 2019, you want to appeal to the young audience because they play on their phone, they play a lot, but they play for free. And there's many other things that with Garfield's MTG mentality doesn't work unless it's fucking MTG. And that's why legendary card game designer is literally only known for MTG. Out of like 30 card games he's made.
There's been other stuff, just saying.
No, yeah, but nobody's ever fucking heard of it.
Yeah,
it failed.
I think that if there's a time to flame him, like this is clearly a time, because at the same time, like clearly it seems that Valve has said is like, well, we don't need you anymore. Like we don't think that your contributions I have a little bit more of a distance of saying like I don't really know what he did exactly. It's hard for me to know exactly what was his decision or somebody else's decision. But clearly there was enough wrong that Valve said this isn't working. So I maybe it's also just a combination of like different visions of the game, like kind of who it's marketing to, like exactly how it's supposed to work. But clearly, like the product that came out at the end, it seems like a lot of people were unhappy with how it turned out, especially in Valve.
Like in one of the videos with Garfield's in them, I remember him actually saying something along the lines of that the game wasn't meant to be successful or something like that. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was a video with Garfield in it.
I think you are referring to the time when he said that all the people who've tested the game, who've tried out the game, keep saying, oh, this is my shit, but I don't think it will appeal to many games. And he called that the secret sauce. Nobody thinks it has mass appeal.
Yeah. He actually he made a game specifically knowing that it wouldn't appeal to a lot of people. Like, who the fuck does that? He fucked over Valve.
I mean, I think that that's also one of the things about this game that was a misunderstanding of things, as like a fundamental misunderstanding, had to do with the audience. Because it was designed to be this hyper analytical, turbo in-depth game that was just for real strategy nerds.
Yeah.
And it just ended up being
for old school card game enthusiasts.
Yeah, but it ended up being just too heavy for people. And that was something that I think is sort of misreading the audience in some important ways, because you have to have a game at the one level that you play it, you can have fun, you can kind of put it down, and it feels like a light experience, and somebody like maybe there just isn't enough of an audience for it of being this like super hardcore gamer to enjoy it. And I guess also like when you have things mixed in there as well of you have it's supposed to be in one hand for the super hardcore gamer, and then you had the original cheating death in there, which is just like the most anti-hardcore gamer card. Like any hardcore gamer is going to see that card and play with that card and just be like, this is a fucking nightmare. So maybe that's kind of like part of why, because I felt like there was some like incoherence. There's definitely some incoherence in terms of like the vision and the balance and like especially like the way of which things were rolled out in various ways. So that's definitely an element of what caused all of this in my mind.
Yeah. And let's just throw out the magic word out there, economy.
Yeah. And that's something they fucking shout out too in the post.
Yeah.
Right? Like they acknowledge the fact that they fucked up the economy even there, which I'm happy for them that they at least like acknowledge like we definitely made some mistakes there. And because I think that if there was one thing that I would say that they could have said, we're just going to knuckle down and say like, this is what we needed to do. This was how the game was, meant to be, and like how we thought was the best way of monetizing it. Because in some respects, it is sort of separate from the rest of the game at some important ways. But even so the fact that they admitted that, I felt was some good self-reflection from them.
Yeah. And the public perception of Artifact, not just inside, but especially outside of the community, is still paywall after paywall. And this is from Valve, who are known to have some of the most satisfying free-to-play multiplayer games. Not just it's Dota 2, it's TF2, it's CSGO now.
Yeah.
And all I promise you, it's Garfield's fault.
The thing is, like, gamers nowadays, especially multiplayer, just look at Apex Legends, etc. They want unlimited entertainment for free with the option to show their appreciation through optional purchases such as battle passes, etc. And the thing is, amazingly, it works.
Yeah.
Gamers actually love spending money on games they enjoy, even if the client and the base game itself is free.
Yeah, and that's something that I think
to come into this kind of audience with a game where you're like, you like MTG, right? And everyone goes like, not really. I mean, at least Arena is free, right? Well, here's a game that's as classic as you could be, except you can't even trade, which, by the way, has always been like my number one complaint about the economy as it is right now. Like, I personally never had the biggest complaints about the market, etc., but not being able to trade cards was always my personal pet peeve, right? Because that basically makes the economy inferior to any paper-based TCG suddenly, right?
I think that this is something that is also a big problem with it, is a fundamental misunderstanding of some of the psychology of gamers too. Because well, like what Simon's saying in terms of the shift to a cosmetics-based economies in most games, this is like in the year 2019, the way things work is that this is the expectations that players have. And I think that had this game, that had Artifact come out 10 years earlier, or a game that's using similar mechanics and using a similar economy come out 10 years earlier, then they could have gotten away with this in important ways. And like maybe things build up from there. But the way in which gamers approach things now is, I get to try your game and decide whether I like your game or not for free.
Yeah.
Like I get to really thoroughly test it. And if I do like it, then I'll spend money on it and get deeper invested into it. But by like changing things up where you actually have to like really pay for the game in order to even sort of really feel like you know what's going on, it's such a big barrier. Because the thing for me is that like when you do the analysis, especially like sort of like one thing started becoming just popular, people were getting rid of their cards or whatever, like the game was not particularly expensive. Like, if the problem was the expense of the game, then you would see some old players leaving and new players coming in because like, oh hey, it's hella cheap right now because I can go $20 for an account and then $50 for all of the cards, and then just go off to the races for it. Like you would have been able to do that afterwards. So it wasn't in the sense of it wasn't so much that it was about exactly how expensive it was, but it was very much more, I think, about the structure of the economy that really turned players off. And I just felt that there need to be a lot more respect for this is just how people are, and we're not going to be able to remake them just because we want to. And I think that Anger's shitting on Garfield of saying, like, having this really strong idea of how gamers are supposed to be, I think that was probably coming from him. So, yeah.
Yeah, because he's old.
Man, I still just feel like if Valve, like, there's so many factors, right? But I still feel a little bit like if Valve had managed a couple aspects outside of the game better, like when it comes to like community goodwill right now, and like fostering patience, so to say.
Yeah, impressing 300 people. There's no point
before
to
it came, I mean, before it even came to that point, I'm talking about like pre-release. I'm talking about the kind of marketing that would have primed people for this, or even going into like an in-depth blog post about the math behind the economy, etc. You know, where they're like, well, we expect people will spend this much, blah blah blah, and according to our math, I don't know, priced play modes really only require this much, etc., and you get this much out of it with an average of this, etc. You know, the kind of math that the community is still split about to this day. And part of why the economy went to shit like that is because of the quickly declining player base. Like, again, all these problems kind of go into each other like freaking gears, right? This is like a well-oiled clockwork of mistakes, right? So it's hard to tell chicken from egg, etc. But all we know is just there's some deeply flawed shit in there. And apparently, after looking at it closely, they decided they can't tackle it within a couple months. This has to be re-examined over a significant amount of time.
But I think people who say that Valve needed to communicate more and all that, I think that's a big mistake, because it's not like them communicating. It will only ever appease the people who are already who are still playing the game. Like, even when there were over 10,000 people playing, it would not bring in new people, and that has always since launch been the problem, that so many people are leaving and not new people are coming in. Like, literally nobody new is coming in. It's only the people who are hyped from before, because everyone who has heard about it now only has negative thoughts about it.
Oh my god, I saw so many comments where it's like, wait, Artifact is out?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And
my heart, why?
And that's why I think people who cry about Valve having to communicate more, and especially even before this last update they did, everyone's like, oh, they need to communicate more. They just need to communicate more.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
No, that's not gonna fucking solve anything. Oh yeah, but there's so many people in hibernation who will come back as soon as Valve just says something. No, they won't.
They are just in cryogenesis, like
and I think that
waiting to be woken up.
I think with a relaunch,
there's people on the moon.
I think with a relaunch, all of these people will maybe try it and come back. But with tiny updates or something, a tiny comment from Valve, that's not going to be enough. And
oh my god, it's like that meme, I sleep, and then Valve updates, real shit.
And oh fuck, I was gonna say something.
Sorry.
No, never mind.
Update.
I mean, I think at this point, though, about like the updates and stuff like that, people bitch about communication from game devs all the fucking time. I hear it in like every game, basically. But the players are just like, communicate more. Come on, I want to hear more. It's like, I don't feel like there's basically any game community, like maybe one or two, where people are like, yeah, no, they communicate great. We're very happy with it. People just constantly want more communication because that's what they want. But at the same time, like this is something I mentioned even before in Eternal, that game, is that in some ways, Artifact's problems came partly from communicating some things before they should be. Like you promising that the game was going to come out in 2018. they shouldn't have done that, because the game was clearly not ready to come out when it did come out. Like, just given the fact that they made a bunch of changes and upgrades to the client afterwards, like that just seems to be obvious for it. So by overpromising and moving too quickly, like they kind of forced themselves to do that by making these promises and communicating some stuff too early. When people like say constantly about this, like, I want more communication, it's like, well, the downside of too much communication is you have too high of expectations, and then things fail. So, like, yes, I understand you want to hear more. Everybody wants to hear more. Like, who doesn't want to hear more? But like, you have to kind of like fully understand about this idea of like broken promises is a result of too much communication. So even though Artifact had this very weird schedule of communication, I think that like a lot of other game companies do more. Like it just couldn't deliver on that, and that was a cause of some major problems. So that's just kind of something that I want to like address for it. So, and when people bitch about it, like just get used to it. People like whatever. It's not that the biggest deal. The more important thing is that the game is good, and a lot of people just didn't like that. And I think that also just want to go more broadly to the community side of things, because it's just been such a weird ride in that respect. And I think that also ties into this idea of communication as well, because by oversharing things, and for instance, the beta shit, like the rollout of beta was like absolute disaster, created a bunch of bad will and sour taste in the mouth, hypercritical, and it was like the game having its own noticeable problems still is a part of it, but that also really overemphasized and inflamed some of this drama that happened later, because everyone was so bitchy about how badly beta was handled.
Yeah.
I can't, like, people still bring it up.
No, but the biggest
in every
problem...
discussion, people still bring up, the streamers, etc., that were paid, blah blah blah. It's insane. Like, that's how much it mattered in the end. People are still mad about it.
The biggest problem with the closed beta wasn't the fact that the streamers, the yes men who were in the closed beta, and then they didn't give feedback, or rather they gave feedback and Valve didn't listen, whichever version you choose to believe. That wasn't really the problem. The problem was that by the time Artifact was launched, people had, and it was Grappler, who's a really, really smart guy, who made me realize it, that by the time Artifact was out, the game had already been played by everyone for at least 6 months, because we had known how to play for at least 6 months. So by the time the game was launched, it was already high time for a second expansion, because in our head we had all been playing it. We knew how to play, we knew all the cards, and especially the people who had been in the closed beta, they had so much content ready. So everything, the meta had been solved, most of it, of course some exceptions like Mono Blue, most of it had been solved, most of it had been thought about a lot. There was an oversaturation of content. So it wasn't really a new game like the way Apex Legends was released. Here's a new game, boom, you can play it, it's free right now. But with Artifact, all the communication was so detrimental, because it made the game already old when it was new.
Yeah, and I think that it was something that
Damn.
Definitely.
How ironic it's called Artifact.
I mean, I think that the way in which it's the closed beta work specifically is something that I'm sure that Valve's going to look at and say it's a disaster. And in terms of, like, you're going to have to, like, it's going to take a while to figure out exactly, like, what was the thing that made it so bad and so dysfunctional. But clearly there were, like, many layers to the problem there. Like, we had, like, the totally botched reveal season where new cars were being leaked like every week. The Chinese streamer, who like leaked whatever it was, like, dozens of cards for it. Just reams and reams of that, of those problems. And then when you have people who are like able to talk about the game kind of, but not really, you created this like very strange purgatory thing where you have like Reynad and Noxious that are shit talking the game before it's out, kind of. And like just like layers and layers of all these problems, like feasting on top of one another, and creating this complexity. So it I think that very clear, and the fact that they just didn't take that feedback either just makes them look really incompetent. But maybe it was just like the structure of the beta just made it harder for them to take in that feedback accurately. I really don't know exactly what happened there. I wasn't part of it, and like Anger was the only one who was part of it. There's probably some elements of it that's still NDA protected in terms of what exactly happened, how exactly things worked there, and she wasn't even there for the majority of it. So, but very clearly. There was some serious stuff that was going on in that back of the closed beta period that was botched. And I expect nobody else to do at least the size of the closed beta that they did for this, because it just felt like that was a big problem.
Yeah. The only thing that we ever got close to what was going on is when Swim shared one of his feedback emails, where he's like, I tried, guys, we don't know how other beta participants did it. A lot of them said we did give feedback, etc. We don't know how that feedback was worked with, etc. We also have that one time when one of the Artifact developers actually opened up a tiny bit on Twitter because another developer asked, and he kind of spoke in hypotheticals about, maybe player feedback was not reflected upon blah blah blah, right? Like he was at least ready to hypothetically allow the assumption or the idea that perhaps feedback was not being worked with effectively, and then he was shut up, of course, by his team.
Well, I mean, that's something that's obvious, because we have something like cheating death.
Yeah.
Like that's the classic example. It's like that card should not have been printed the way that it was. And so that was something that we had, because it's also something that when you get feedback from people too, when you from a group of people, especially that have different feelings and different emotions and different types of feedback that they're giving you, it's very easy to craft the narrative that you want if that's your objective. Like if you want to tell yourself, like especially if when you're invested in a game, you've been working on it for years, and you're saying like, I think I like it, I think that it makes sense to me. Especially, I also imagine too that there's just you end up being this very weird and warped perspective when you've been working on something for years, and then you're just like trying to show it to other people. It takes a lot of humility and a lot of restraint to take in feedback and process in a way of being like, okay, like these are the things that matter. This is the criticism that I need to internalize in some way and need to address. These are things that are outside of our control. Maybe this particular person doesn't like it for whatever reason. These are the things that are actually valuable. And I think that there was some level of breakdown that happened there because especially like, I don't know, we know the examples of that.
I mean, there's right now, I have several future scenarios in my head for what Artifact may become, right? There is my nightmare scenario in a way where a new Artifact comes out and it's nothing like the old one. Because as I said, as flawed as it is apparently, in terms of gameplay, I still like the 3 lanes. I still like the heroes.
But that's not what people are criticizing them.
Yeah. But there is a subcurrent of people who feel like, oh, maybe it was too complicated with the 3 lanes. Maybe they should just.
Well, the problem wasn't that the 3 lanes made it too complicated. The problem was that how complicated it was negated by the fucking RNG.
Yeah. So here, that's my nightmare scenario, right? That it comes out again and it is a simplified or completely changed thing that is just, and it's free. It has the exact same model as Hearthstone, where you grind, etc. But then there's like my dream scenario, right? Where Artifact comes back and it still has the same amount of depth that it currently has, but they found a way to replace stuff like the arrow RNG with different mechanics or with more controlled roll mechanics, maybe. Just something that worked around those particular parts of the game, which of course had rippling effects throughout the whole design. Okay, as we said, if you change the arrows, you completely change how like defensive and offensive works in lanes. You have to change cards that change aggro, etc. Like the arrows alone will have such huge rippling effects throughout the whole game that if that is one of the deeply rooted flaws they see, which I believe they do, then this would be enough to put Artifact on hold for at least half a year. Just that one mechanic. Because you would have to redesign Artifact completely from there. But my dream is basically that they just come out with something where they worked around the existing flaws instead of making a completely new game.
One of the important things is that it needs to feel less heavy. The game has really felt to me like picking it up. It's just kind of, it's like huge mental undertaking in some respects to just play a game of Artifact. And I think that making the game just feel more fun, less heavy, the game's less long and intense, are all parts about it that they need to consider about how to rework the game to solve some of these issues. That's something that I think that they need to take most seriously. At the same time, though, I do want them to keep some elements of the game, like this point about not listening to people who like the game or don't want the game to change. I think that in some respects, like, yes, obviously things do need to change, so you can't take them, the people who says like don't change anything, you have to ignore them to some degree. But I think that it's important for people to still say like what are the features of the game that you like the most, that you want them to preserve. So those are just some of my thoughts. But I think that we kind of, in some respects, we have to wrap this up somewhere. There's a lot that can be said about this, but we have to end it at some point. So I was interested in getting some final thoughts from you guys before we wrap up. Anger, give me your final take.
Well, even if the game is dying and it might die completely, I still really appreciate all that it has given me, like the road in and of itself, before the launch, meeting everyone. Like I've met new friends for life, and just making the videos and streaming it, and even though Valve failed on a lot of things, I still really appreciate them making this product, and everything around the game itself. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I get you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. So,
I met a lot of cool people, like you guys.
Yeah.
I'm like not really that cool, so I don't know.
And so no matter what happens to Artifact, like you said, you think the nightmare scenario is the game is completely different. I think it's maybe a 50% chance that there won't even be a relaunch. That's my nightmare, that they simply will abandon the game. And I think there's a pretty high probability that will happen. But even if it does, I still love Artifact for what it was, and simply for this road it has put me on.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Artifact tipped over the scale in the way that I always wanted to create content for games. Like I had so many videos like in my head, like throughout my time with Dota alone, like when it comes to the lore, etc., which as you guys know is one of my passions. And I just reached the point, and then I talked to Divok from, the Artificers Guild, which died before Artifact. And he enabled me or encouraged me to make videos of my own. And even though they certainly weren't super popular, I still felt like Artifact gave me the opportunity to put my creativity somewhere and put something out there. And there's plenty of people who did like what I made. And there's still hundreds of people who listen to this podcast every couple of weeks. And I have never been a content creator. So this has been a very pleasant experience for me. And part of me still hopes that I can, keep at that or return to that once Artifact returns gloriously on the third day. And yeah, the way that this letter is phrased in some ways does make me fear that Artifact will be like put on ice within Valve for a time, because of how they say Artifact now presents an opportunity for us to improve our craft and use that knowledge to build better games. Plural. That just sounds like, well, we take this L and we will turn it into lots of W's. That's not Artifact. But again, my dream scenario. I hope that Artifact returns with the features that I like. I hope that it is still Artifact when it does return, just a better version of it. That's my dream, and I hope that it's going to be the game that the community that it found eventually was hoping for, and that we can all be happy with it.
Yeah, I mean,
just less war, guys.
I think that for me, like, I'm just kind of, the whole experience in some respects was frustrating from top to bottom, because it felt like, to me, I felt like I was kind of making some progress in my craft as a content creator. Like, I've obviously done this kind of shit before, and like I was making some products and some videos and stuff like that I thought were good, and then just as like the game was kind of collapsing, it was just super frustrating to kind of go through that cycle of feeling like I don't know if I'm doing anything wrong or whether the game is dying or like what's going on there, and that ultimately it was because the game was dying. Because I think that I made some good stuff, and I don't know. That's always something that'll be kind of like weirdly frustrating for me, is that I tried hard to make good shit and it didn't go anywhere. But that was, and I'll never know how much it was, because like I don't know what to learn from this for myself, and which is a weird way to like phrase things, but that's kind of how I try to view a lot of shit. Is like I want to progress, I want to do better, and feeling like I made something good and then have it not go anywhere is like super annoying to me, because I just learn, I don't know. Anyway, that's all like kind of petty personal shit though, so I'm just gonna leave that be. But I mean, it's been lovely to get to know people who are the people who are still listening, and the fans and everything, and like you guys have also been great. So it's been quite a ride, and I'm happy that I've been here for it, and I plan to return to it whenever it does return. So that's something that I'm kind of looking forward to, even though it's going to be a while. But in case people don't like guess this, like we're gonna. The podcast is going to be on hiatus until new stuff happens. Like until we hear something, basically it's hard to do podcasts around shit that we have nothing to talk about. So that's something that for people to be prepared for. So that does mean if you do see another update, like another announcement in the future, like we'll talk about it. We'll come back to it. We'll touch base with you guys again, but we're not going to be trying to force out new content with nothing new happening in the game.
Yeah. But this is really like one of the parts that really depresses the shit out of me, because I really enjoyed doing this podcast and I wish we could do more. But yeah, it would just be every week the same thing, because there's
still
no news.
Don't know anything. Yeah, no, it sucks.
Yeah, I just hope Valve gets it together, man. I just want Artifact to be a good game that everyone enjoys.
Well, anyway,
I love you guys.
Yeah, no, it's been good, and it sucks to say goodbye, but that's what you need to do sometimes. But anyway, that's it from me. Any other final words from you guys? Anger, anything that you want to shout out on our way at the door?
I'm gay.
Yeah, man. Are we all?
Wow.
Okay.
This is the quality that an Artifact podcast deserves.
Yeah, no, of course. Anyway. Okay, well that'll be it from us today, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It actually does mean a lot. But this will be goodbye for now, and hope to touch base with you guys again in the future.
Here it comes.
Peace.
Yeah, peace.
Thank you for your business.